In the vast silence of the cosmos, where stars drift like ancient lanterns and galaxies swirl in elegant spirals, there lies an unseen architecture, a code written not in words but in shape, proportion, and symmetry. Every corner of existence, from the tiniest atom to the grandest cluster of galaxies, seems to whisper the same language: geometry. This is not the cold, mechanical geometry of textbooks, but a living, breathing force, the secret blueprint of reality itself. It is the invisible order that binds chaos into harmony, that gives rhythm to the orbits of planets, and structure to the smallest crystal beneath our feet. We often imagine reality as a collection of random events, governed by blind chance and mechanical laws. Yet, if we look closer, truly closer, patterns begin to emerge from the void. Circles, triangles, spirals, and sacred ratios repeat themselves endlessly, echoing through nature as if the universe were built from the same primordial song. The way leaves spiral around a stem, the way hurricanes curl in vast, majestic arcs, even the way galaxies rotate, all follow precise mathematical patterns that suggest purpose where we once saw accident. Imagine standing at the edge of the ocean, watching waves fold over each other in perfect rhythm. Beneath the sound of water, there is a hidden design, an equation that determines how each crest rises and falls, how energy transfers from one wave to the next. Now imagine that same pattern unfolding at every scale of existence. In atoms, in the motion of moons, in the invisible fabric of spacetime itself. The realization is both terrifying and beautiful. Perhaps the universe is not random at all, but a vast geometric symphony, playing out across infinite dimensions. This is where our journey begins, not with facts but with questions. What if geometry is not just a tool to measure the world, but the very essence of it? What if shapes are not mere abstractions but living expressions of cosmic intelligence? Could the secret geometry of existence be the hidden script through which the universe dreams itself into being? In ancient times, philosophers believed that to understand geometry was to glimpse the mind of God. Plato wrote that the universe was built upon perfect forms, the timeless geometries that exist beyond the physical world. Centuries later, physicists would echo the same sentiment in a different language, that the laws of nature are written in mathematical form. Whether one calls it divine design or cosmic order, the idea remains the same: there is structure in the chaos, intelligence in the void. And yet, the more we uncover, the deeper the mystery becomes. If geometry is the code, who or what wrote it? If every living form is a manifestation of this invisible structure, what does that say about consciousness, our own awareness that perceives these patterns? Are we observers, or are we part of the geometry itself, spiraling inward like fractals within a greater whole? As the camera moves through galaxies, molecules, and the silent pulse of the atom, the same forms repeat, connecting the infinitely large with the infinitely small. The narrator's voice softens, almost in awe, as the realization dawns. Perhaps existence is not built from matter or energy, but from relationships, the geometric harmony between all things. The world, then, is not a collection of objects, but a dance of patterns forever unfolding in sacred proportion. The secret geometry of existence does not demand belief, it invites wonder. It asks us to see the universe not as a machine, but as a masterpiece. To recognize that behind every equation and every heartbeat lies the same simple truth: form and meaning are one. The circle closes, the pattern continues, and the mystery deepens, because to glimpse the geometry of existence is to stand at the threshold of creation itself, gazing into the infinite order behind all that is. Aerial world toward unity with the absolute. These civilizations, separated by time and distance, all seem to draw from the same well, a universal understanding that geometry was the blueprint of being. But what if these ancient visions were not mere metaphors? What if they intuited something science would later prove? That the universe at its core is geometric. In modern physics, the same patterns appear again. The spiraling arms of galaxies mirror the curves of seashells. The hexagonal lattice of snowflakes echoes the structures of carbon atoms. The orbits of planets follow precise ratios reminiscent of harmonic frequencies. The deeper scientists peer into matter, the more they find symmetry, balance, and proportion, as though the cosmos itself were composed of pure design. The language of creation is not bound by culture or religion. It is written in the spirals of DNA, the ripples of a water droplet, the hexagons in a beehive. It speaks in silence and reveals itself through pattern. To the mystic, it is the signature of God. To the physicist, it is the equation of existence. And to the philosopher, it is the bridge between mind and matter, where logic and beauty become one. Everywhere we look, this geometry whispers, in the rhythm of our breath, the structure of our thoughts, the unseen balance of forces that sustain life. It does not shout, it hums softly, waiting for recognition. Once heard, it cannot be forgotten. The awareness changes everything, because to recognize the geometry in creation is to glimpse the sacred order behind chaos, to feel the pulse of intelligence that moves through all things. And so the question arises, are we merely observers of this cosmic language, or are we participants in its unfolding? Are we separate from the pattern or expressions of it, living symbols within a greater geometric whole? The answer hides not in the stars or the atoms, but in our own perception, in the silent recognition that the same symmetry governing galaxies also shapes the beating heart within us. The language of creation does not need translation. It only asks to be seen, in the curve of a horizon, the arc of a rainbow, the spiral of time itself. For those who truly look, the message becomes clear. The universe is not random nor cold. It is poetry written in form, harmony made visible. And somewhere, in the space between thought and silence, we begin to understand. The Creator speaks in geometry, and existence is the echo of that eternal voice. Long before the dawn of modern science, before telescopes reached the stars or microscopes unveiled the unseen, there were civilizations who gazed at the world and saw not chaos, but order, not randomness but design. These were the first architects of thought, the ancient minds who dared to ask, what is the shape of reality? What invisible patterns give birth to everything we see? In their temples, pyramids, and sacred sites, they encoded a silent understanding that geometry was the divine script from which creation itself was written. In the desert sands of Egypt, the Great Pyramid of Giza rises like a frozen equation, its proportions so precise they still confound engineers today. Each side aligns almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, and its slope reflects the golden ratio, a number that would later appear in the spirals of galaxies and the structure of DNA. To the Egyptians, this was no coincidence. The pyramid was not just a tomb but a cosmic instrument, harmonizing heaven and earth through sacred proportion. It was a bridge between the finite and the infinite, geometry transformed into stone. Across the Mediterranean, the Greeks carried this ancient wisdom into the realm of philosophy and mathematics. In the city of Croton, Pythagoras and his followers studied the hidden harmony of numbers, discovering that musical notes, planetary motions, and geometric forms all followed the same mathematical relationships. To them, the universe was not a collection of matter, but a living harmony, a symphony of ratios. The Pythagoreans believed that by understanding geometry, one could attune the soul to the frequency of the cosmos. Numbers were sacred not for what they counted but for what they revealed, the order beneath the illusion of chaos. Further east, in the great civilizations of India, geometry became a language of meditation and transcendence. The mandala and yantra were not mere decorations, they were spiritual maps, diagrams of the universe and the mind intertwined. The Sri Yantra, composed of interlocking triangles, represented the balance between masculine and feminine energies, Shiva and Shakti, creation and dissolution. Each line, each intersection was symbolic of the eternal cycle, the unfolding of consciousness from unity into multiplicity, and its return. To draw a mandala was to participate in the act of creation itself, a sacred ritual of balance and awakening. In ancient China, geometry took on another form, harmony expressed through the balance of opposites. The yin and yang, the circle divided into two swirling halves, embodied the eternal dance of duality. Every curve, every proportion within that symbol carried profound meaning, light and dark, motion and stillness, expansion and contraction, all geometrically balanced. The Chinese understood that the universe was not static but dynamic, a living geometry constantly flowing and reforming. Even the design of their temples and cities followed principles of spatial harmony, aligning human life with the natural flow of cosmic energy. From the Mayan pyramids aligned to celestial events, to the intricate stone circles of ancient Britain, a single thread connects these distant civilizations, an awareness that form and meaning are inseparable. They built with purpose, not merely to create shelter or monuments but to mirror the architecture of the universe. The temples of Angkor Wat align perfectly with astronomical cycles. The ziggurats of Mesopotamia reach upward like geometric prayers. In their symmetry and proportion, these structures became more than human achievements. They became messages carved into time, reminders that humanity once saw itself as part of a larger, harmonious design. These early architects of thought were not merely builders or mathematicians. They were dreamers of form, translators of the unseen. They perceived in geometry a sacred intelligence that transcended culture and era. For them, every shape held power, every ratio a resonance with the divine. To them, a triangle was not just a shape, it was the trinity of existence, birth, life, and death. A circle was not a line without end, it was eternity itself, looping through time. The square was the earth, stable and grounded, while the spiral represented the journey of the soul, forever expanding toward enlightenment. What modern science would later describe as physics, they expressed through symbol and ritual. They understood intuitively what we are only beginning to rediscover, that geometry is the bridge between the seen and the unseen, the material and the metaphysical. Their temples, calendars, and monuments were not random constructions but deliberate reflections of celestial order, microcosms of the universe rendered in stone, wood, and fire. And yet, even as their civilizations faded into the dust of history, their knowledge endured, encoded in myth, art, and architecture. The golden ratio of Egyptian design echoes in the Parthenon of Athens. The mandalas of India mirror the atomic symmetry revealed by quantum physics. The harmony of yin and yang finds its resonance in the balance of matter and antimatter. These ancient geometries were not lost, they were waiting to be remembered. The question remains, how did they know? How did people thousands of years ago, without modern instruments, discern patterns that still govern our understanding of the cosmos today? Were they guided by intuition or by something greater, a collective memory of the universe's design encoded within the human mind itself? The mystery deepens and with it our sense of wonder. Perhaps these early thinkers were not just the first mathematicians, but the first philosophers of existence, those who looked at the stars and saw the same geometry reflected within their own souls. In their hands, geometry became more than lines and angles. It became revelation, a way to touch the infinite. And though centuries have passed, their message remains the same. To understand the shapes of the world is to understand the essence of being. The first architects of thought built not just monuments of stone, but foundations of knowledge that still shape the way we see reality today. Nature appears chaotic, waves crash without rhythm, lightning forks unpredictably, and galaxies scatter across the black canvas of space in no apparent order. Yet, beneath this surface of disorder, a silent precision operates. It is as if an invisible hand sketches structure from randomness, harmony from turmoil. What we call chaos may only be the mask worn by a deeper geometry, a pattern so vast and intricate that our limited perception mistakes it for confusion. But as science peers closer into the heart of complexity, a truth emerges. Nature is not chaotic at all, it is exquisitely organized. The closer we look, the more we find the same recurring forms, repeating endlessly across scales, fractals, spirals, and self-similar patterns that weave reality together like an infinite web. Imagine standing atop a mountain and looking down at a river winding through the valley below. Its path seems random, twisting and turning in unpredictable ways. But trace that curve mathematically and you'll find the geometry of a fractal, a pattern that repeats itself at different scales, from the grand sweep of the river to the tiniest tributary feeding it. The same principle governs lightning as it splits across the sky, the veins of a leaf, the branches of a tree, even the neurons firing in our brains. What appears chaotic is, in truth, self-similar order, the universe repeating its own signature in infinite variations. This concept, fractal geometry, would not be formally defined until the 20th century by mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot, who revealed that nature's roughness hides mathematical precision. Mountains, clouds, coastlines, and storms all share fractal dimensions, measurable yet infinite. The revelation was profound. Nature is not random but recursive, a mirror endlessly folding into itself. The boundary between order and chaos is not a line, it's a fractal frontier shimmering with complexity. But long before Mandelbrot, the ancients sensed this truth intuitively. They saw the same spirals in the shells of snails and in the galaxies above. They wove these forms into their art, temples, and myths, aware that the same shapes governed both heaven and earth. They called it the harmony of the spheres, the balance of opposites, the divine proportion. Today we call it mathematics, but the mystery remains the same. How does such perfect geometry arise from apparent disorder? Consider the Fibonacci sequence, a simple progression of numbers. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. Each number is the sum of the two before it. This pattern appears everywhere, in the spiral of sunflower seeds, in hurricanes, in the unfurling of a fern, even in the proportions of the human body. The ratio between these numbers as they grow larger, approaches the golden ratio, the same sacred proportion used in ancient temples and Renaissance art. It is as though the entire universe, from living beings to galaxies, is built from the same mathematical breath, exhaling the same rhythm of creation. Chaos and order, therefore, are not opposites but partners in a cosmic dance. The storm that destroys is also the force that gives birth to new patterns. The breaking of symmetry creates life, movement, and evolution. A snowflake forms from random collisions of water molecules, yet no two are the same, each one a geometric masterpiece sculpted by invisible laws. Even within chaos, there is a secret order that governs how things form, break, and reform again. In the world of physics, this balance between chaos and structure becomes even more astonishing. Turbulence, one of the most complex phenomena in nature, reveals self-similar vortices that behave according to fractal laws. The same equations that describe airflow over a wing can describe ocean currents, the movement of planets, and the dynamics of galaxies. It's as though the universe is an algorithm, endlessly generating itself through recursive mathematical loops. What we perceive as randomness may simply be geometry in motion, too vast, too intricate for the human mind to immediately recognize. Philosophically, this realization carries deep weight. If patterns govern even chaos, then nothing in existence is truly meaningless. Every event, every fluctuation, is part of a larger geometric composition. Destruction and creation become two sides of the same fractal, infinite reflection within infinite reflection. The philosopher might call it the symmetry of being, the scientist calls it deterministic complexity. Both are staring at the same truth through different lenses. Emotionally, this understanding evokes both awe and humility. Awe because the universe is far more intelligent than we could ever imagine. Humility, because we are part of its geometry, not separate from it. The very neurons firing in our minds as we contemplate these ideas form fractal-like networks, mirroring the branching of trees and lightning bolts. The pattern is within us just as it is beyond us. The micro and the macro, the mind and the cosmos, all reflect one another in endless symmetry. As the camera sweeps through the fractal folds of reality, from the spiral of a galaxy to the swirl of cream in a cup of coffee, a profound realization settles in. There is no chaos, only complexity. The randomness we perceive is a doorway to deeper understanding. Beneath the turbulence of existence lies the geometry of life itself, eternal, self-organizing, divine. To see this pattern is to awaken to the truth that the universe is not an accident. It is a masterpiece, an infinite design composed of both chaos and harmony, written in the language of form. The paradox becomes the poetry. Chaos births order, disorder shapes symmetry, and from the edge of randomness, beauty arises. The patterns beneath chaos remind us that even in the darkest storm, the universe is whispering its eternal secret, that everything, no matter how wild, belongs perfectly to the geometry of existence. There is a number that seems to whisper through every corner of the universe. A ratio so elegant, so pervasive, that it appears in the spiral of galaxies, the petals of flowers, and the proportions of the human face. It is known as the golden ratio, phi, an irrational number approximately equal to 1. 618. But beyond its mathematical definition lies a deeper enigma. Why does this ratio appear everywhere in nature, art, and even our sense of beauty? Why does this simple proportion seem to be nature's signature, stamped across all creation like a divine watermark? The story of the golden ratio begins not with modern science, but with ancient awe. The Egyptians used it unknowingly in the design of the Great Pyramid. The Greeks studied it in the proportions of temples and statues. Renaissance artists like Leonardo da Vinci used it consciously to capture ideal beauty in works such as The Vitruvian Man and The Last Supper. But it was never merely an artistic preference, it was an echo of something universal. Across cultures, architects, painters, and sculptors found themselves returning to the same proportion, as if guided by an unseen principle woven into the very structure of reality. In nature, this ratio manifests in forms so common that we often overlook them. The spiral of a nautilus shell, expanding with perfect logarithmic precision. The arrangement of leaves on a stem, each positioned to catch sunlight without shadowing the one below. The branching of trees, the pattern of hurricanes, the arms of spiral galaxies. All follow the geometry of phi. Even within our bodies, the ratio appears repeatedly. The length of the forearm to the hand, the spacing of facial features, the proportions of DNA's double helix. The same number governs both the vast and the intimate, the cosmos and the cell. Mathematically, the golden ratio is connected to the Fibonacci sequence, a series of numbers where each is the sum of the two preceding ones. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, and so on. As the sequence grows, the ratio between consecutive numbers approaches 1. 618, the same phi that defines so much of nature's architecture. It is as if creation itself follows a rhythmic code, unfolding in a precise mathematical rhythm that balances growth and harmony. Plants grow in spirals not by chance, but because it is the most efficient way to pack seeds or leaves, geometry optimizing life itself. To witness the golden ratio in motion is to feel a strange harmony between logic and beauty. It satisfies both the intellect and the soul. Scientists call it a naturally efficient pattern, but to the poet or philosopher, it is evidence of a deeper intelligence. There is an emotional perfection in how it feels, neither too symmetrical nor too random. It evokes a sense of balance that feels inherently right, as though the universe itself prefers this ratio when building its masterpieces. Artists and architects throughout history have sensed this truth. In the Parthenon, the facade follows the exact ratio of phi. In Da Vinci's human studies, the proportions of the body align with it precisely. Even modern art and design continue to draw from its timeless allure, from the compositions of Salvador Dali to the design of Apple's logo. Whether through intuition or calculation, humans have always been drawn to the same proportion that nature uses, perhaps because we, too, are made from it. But beyond aesthetics, the golden ratio points to something more profound, a bridge between the material and the metaphysical. It hints that beauty is not merely subjective, it is structural. It is embedded in the mathematics of existence itself. When we find something beautiful, a face, a flower, a sunset, it is because our consciousness recognizes the underlying order, the silent harmony of proportions that echo within our own being. We respond to phi because we are phi. Our bodies, our DNA, even our neural patterns reflect the same geometry. There is also a haunting mystery within this perfection. Why does the universe favor this number? Why not another? Why should spiral galaxies, living cells, and human creativity all adhere to the same mathematical pattern? Is it a coincidence or is it a clue, evidence that reality is governed by design rather than chance? The deeper we look, the harder it becomes to dismiss. From the spiraling storms on Jupiter to the unfolding petals of a rose, phi reappears like a signature left by the artist of creation. Some physicists and philosophers have suggested that the golden ratio may be an emergent property of systems seeking equilibrium, the most stable, efficient way for energy to distribute itself. Others believe it may be the mathematical reflection of consciousness itself, an archetype that unites all levels of existence. The debate remains open, but the feeling it evokes is universal: awe. A quiet realization that the same force shaping galaxies also shaped us. And in that realization there is connection, a recognition that beauty and truth are not separate paths but one. The universe does not just function, it composes. Every curve, every proportion, every spiral is a note in a timeless symphony, guided by the same invisible hand. The golden ratio is not simply a number. It is a reminder that the cosmos is not random but purposeful, and that even in its infinite complexity, it adheres to a single, elegant design. As the camera glides through spiral shells, sunflower fields, hurricanes, and finally into the swirling arms of the Milky Way, the same form repeats, endlessly, effortlessly. The narration fades to a whisper, asking a question that lingers in the silence. If this ratio defines everything, could it also define the soul? The scene closes on the realization that perhaps beauty itself is the universe recognizing its own geometry, and through that recognition, existence becomes aware of its own perfection. For centuries, the worlds of science and spirituality have walked parallel paths, each seeking to uncover the truth of existence, yet often speaking in different tongues. One speaks in equations and laws, the other in symbols and metaphors. But beneath the surface they are both searching for the same thing, the hidden architecture of reality. Nowhere does this convergence become clearer than in the study of geometry, where sacred meaning and scientific precision intertwine. The sacred and the scientific, once thought to be opposites, are in fact reflections of one another, two mirrors facing each other in an infinite loop of understanding. Sacred geometry has long been regarded as the language of the divine, the blueprint through which consciousness gives birth to form. The circle represented unity and eternity, the triangle, the trinity of creation, the spiral, the journey of life and evolution. To the ancients, these shapes were not abstractions. They were alive, carrying vibrational frequencies that resonated with the soul. The flower of life, the seed of life, the tree of life. These symbols were more than art. They were diagrams of creation, believed to hold within them the very pattern by which the universe unfolded from the void. To modern science, geometry also holds ultimate significance, but it describes it in terms of structure, symmetry, and physical law. Space and time are not merely a background for matter but are themselves geometric fields. The equations of Einstein's relativity describe how the curvature of spacetime creates gravity. Quantum physics describes particles not as solid points but as oscillating waves, vibrations within geometric probability fields. String theory proposes that everything from light to matter arises from vibrating strings arranged in multidimensional geometric patterns. What the mystic once called divine vibration, the physicist now calls quantum resonance. The two perspectives, once thought incompatible, now begin to converge. The sacred speaks of vibration as the origin of creation. Science calls it energy. The sacred speaks of the music of the spheres. Physics describes cosmic microwave background frequencies echoing through space. The sacred sees the universe as an intelligent pattern. The scientific sees it as a self-organizing system guided by mathematical laws. The language differs, the meaning aligns. Imagine the structure of a snowflake, perfectly symmetrical, delicate yet precise. No two are alike, yet each one follows the same underlying geometric rules of crystallization. To the mystic, this is sacred design, divine order expressed in frozen water. To the scientist, it is molecular geometry governed by temperature and pressure. But look closer, and you find they are describing the same phenomenon from different angles. Order emerging from energy, beauty arising from physics. Sacred geometry finds its essence in meaning. Scientific geometry finds its essence in mechanism. Yet, when these two merge, something profound is revealed. That meaning itself may be a mechanism, and mechanism a reflection of meaning. The golden ratio, for example, is not only a mathematical constant but an aesthetic principle, one that defines beauty in both art and nature. Why should numbers dictate what we perceive as beautiful? Could it be that our perception itself is geometrically tuned, that consciousness and the cosmos speak the same structural language? Everywhere we look, this synthesis unfolds. In the structure of crystals, we see hexagons, the same form found in the honeycombs of bees. In the spirals of galaxies, we see the same curves as in the whirl of a seashell. The sacred mind sees the signature of divine intelligence. The scientific mind sees laws of physics. Yet both are witnessing geometry as the mediator between matter and spirit, the common fabric that connects what we feel to what we can measure. Philosophically, this convergence raises profound questions. If geometry underlies both the physical and the metaphysical, then where does consciousness fit into the equation? Is consciousness a byproduct of matter? Or is matter a byproduct of consciousness structured through geometric awareness? The ancients believed that by contemplating geometric forms, one could align with the universal mind. Meditation upon the circle, the spiral, or the mandala was not symbolic. It was experiential, a way to tune one's perception into harmony with creation itself. Today, neurogeometry, a new field of study, explores how the brain processes visual forms, revealing that humans are naturally wired to find meaning in symmetry and proportion. The sacred and the scientific are again meeting at the threshold of the mind. This blending of perspectives transforms the way we see reality. No longer can we separate the spiritual from the material, or the mystical from the measurable. The universe, in its vast complexity, does not distinguish between them. It speaks one language, expressed through form and pattern. Whether we interpret it as the mind of God or the mathematics of the cosmos, the message is the same. Existence is structured meaning. Geometry is not a human invention. It is the fingerprint of consciousness woven into the very code of reality. And perhaps this is the greatest revelation of all, that both science and spirituality are right, because they are incomplete without each other. Science explains the how but not the why. Spirituality reveals the why but often not the how. Geometry is where the two meet, the bridge between knowledge and wisdom, between fact and feeling, between the measurable and the mystical. When we see the same pattern in both the microscope and the mandala, we realize that understanding the universe does not require choosing sides. It requires integration. As the camera pans over ancient temples, fractal simulations, and swirling galaxies, the narration slows. Every pattern, every formula, every sacred symbol, all are reflections of one truth. Whether you call it divine design or mathematical necessity, the geometry of existence remains the same. The sacred and the scientific are no longer two opposing philosophies. They are two eyes of the same vision, each revealing half of the infinite whole. Sound is invisible, yet it shapes everything. It moves through air and water, through flesh and metal, leaving behind patterns that reveal its hidden geometry. Though we cannot see it, sound sculpts reality moment by moment, forming order out of vibration. Every whisper, every note, every thunderclap is not just energy but architecture. And when we learn to see that invisible structure, a profound truth emerges. Vibration creates form. The universe itself may be a grand symphony, and geometry its eternal score. This idea is not new. In ancient mystery schools, priests and philosophers spoke of the creative power of sound. In Hindu cosmology, the universe begins with a single vibration, Om, the sacred sound from which all matter arises. In Genesis, creation begins with the word. Across countless traditions, sound is portrayed as the spark that brings form to formlessness. The ancients understood that vibration was not merely heard, it was seen, felt, and experienced through every atom of being. Sound was sacred because it was generative, it turned chaos into cosmos. In the modern world, this ancient insight has found scientific confirmation. Through the study of cymatics, the visualization of sound frequencies, researchers have made vibration visible. By placing fine particles of sand, dust, or liquid on a vibrating plate, sound frequencies create precise and intricate geometric patterns. Low tones form simple circles or lines, while higher frequencies generate complex mandalas and star-like formations. As the frequency changes, the pattern shifts instantly, showing that matter itself responds intelligently to vibration. It is as if sound is the sculptor, and the universe is its clay. These patterns are not arbitrary, they mirror the very forms found throughout nature. The hexagonal structure of a snowflake, the spiral of a seashell, the honeycomb of a bee's hive, all resonate with the same principles seen in cymatics experiments. The frequency determines the form, just as a note determines its pitch. This revelation transforms the way we see reality. Perhaps everything, from galaxies to atoms, is shaped by vibration organized by sound. The universe does not merely contain geometry, it sings it. Even our own bodies are instruments of this hidden music. The human voice carries immense power, not only in communication but in resonance. Chanting, humming, and singing have long been used to heal, to focus the mind, and to awaken deeper states of consciousness. Modern science now confirms what ancient mystics intuited, that sound can alter the body's energy fields, influence brainwave patterns, and even affect cellular structure. The human body itself vibrates at measurable frequencies. Our heartbeat, our breath, our brainwaves, all participate in the rhythm of existence. Musical harmony, too, is geometry in motion. Each note corresponds to a specific frequency, and when played together, certain ratios create consonance, mathematical relationships that the human ear perceives as beauty. Pythagoras discovered that dividing a vibrating string in specific proportions produced harmonious intervals, an early glimpse into the connection between mathematics, music, and the cosmos. What we call harmony is, in truth, the audible manifestation of mathematical perfection. When music moves us, it is because it resonates with the same ratios that shape the universe. On a cosmic scale, the same principle unfolds. Astrophysicists have discovered that planets and stars emit frequencies, inaudible to the human ear, yet measurable as vibrations in the fabric of space. These songs of the cosmos are not metaphors, they are literal oscillations. The entire universe hums with energy, from the deep background radiation of the Big Bang to the rhythmic pulse of pulsars spinning in distant galaxies. Creation itself may be a vast orchestra, and we, living beings, are notes within its ongoing composition. The geometry of sound also reveals something profoundly philosophical. Vibration is both form and change, stability and motion in one. Every shape that arises through sound exists only for a moment, held in delicate equilibrium until the frequency shifts. Then it dissolves, transforming into a new pattern. This cycle mirrors the very essence of life: creation, transformation, and rebirth. Nothing is static. Everything dances to an eternal rhythm of becoming. The universe breathes in frequency. When viewed through this lens, even silence gains new meaning. Silence is not the absence of sound but the potential for it, the space from which vibration emerges. In that stillness lies the infinite possibility of form. The ancients revered silence as sacred for this reason. It was the womb of creation. From silence arises sound, from vibration arises structure, and from structure arises life. Philosophers and physicists alike are beginning to converge on the same insight. The fundamental nature of reality may not be matter, but vibration. What we perceive as solid is merely dense frequency, patterns of oscillation slowed down to stability. Energy vibrates, geometry organizes it, and consciousness observes the result. In this trinity of sound, form, and awareness, existence unfolds like a cosmic composition, each of us both participant and listener in the universal song. And so, sound becomes more than sensory experience. It becomes revelation. Every tone, every word, every heartbeat contributes to the hidden symphony of being. When we speak, when we sing, when we simply breathe, We are vibrating with the same creative force that moves stars and atoms alike. The geometry of sound connects us, to each other, to the earth, to the cosmos itself. It is a reminder that creation is not a one-time event, but an ongoing song, one that has never stopped playing. As the final image fades, ripples move across a pool of water, forming perfect concentric circles. The narrator's voice lingers softly. Everything is vibration, and every vibration is geometry. To hear the universe is to see it. To feel its resonance is to recognize that we are not separate from the cosmic harmony. We are the music made visible, the sound of creation given form. Beyond the three dimensions we can see, length, width, and height, lies a hidden architecture that defies ordinary perception. It is a geometry not of space but of possibility. The ancients hinted at it through myth and symbol. Modern science approaches it through mathematics and physics. This unseen realm is the hidden dimension, a world that exists alongside ours, shaping what we perceive, yet forever just beyond our reach. To glimpse it, even in imagination, is to touch the edges of infinity itself. Imagine holding a cube in your hand. You can see its 6 faces, 12 edges, and 8 corners, a complete, solid object. But what if there existed another direction, invisible to your senses, that extended beyond the 3 you know? That direction would lead into the 4th dimension. To beings like us, confined to 3-dimensional experience, such a form would appear impossible, yet its shadow could still be seen. Just as a 3-dimensional object casts a 2-dimensional shadow, a 4-dimensional object would cast a 3-dimensional one. This idea, once purely philosophical, is now deeply embedded in both geometry and physics. The concept of higher dimensions first entered human imagination through pure mathematics. In the 19th century, mathematicians like Charles Hinton and Ludwig Schlafly began to explore the idea of 4-dimensional space, not as fantasy but as logical extension. They described geometric shapes that could only exist in this unseen realm: hypercubes, hyperspheres, and other multidimensional figures that bent the limits of human thought. The most famous of these, the tesseract, is the 4-dimensional analog of a cube within a cube, connected through invisible lines that represent the passage into another dimension. To visualize it is to step beyond ordinary reality, into geometry's deepest mystery. Artists and philosophers seized upon this revelation. To them, the idea of higher dimensions was not merely mathematical, it was spiritual. The 4th dimension became a metaphor for transcendence, for reaching beyond the veil of the physical world. Painters like Salvador Dali used the tesseract to depict the intersection of divinity and form, suggesting that what we call reality is only a projection of something greater. In this sense, geometry became a language of revelation, a way to express what words could never contain. Modern physics took this concept and gave it new form. Einstein's theory of relativity revealed that space and time are not separate entities, but part of a single geometric fabric, spacetime. The universe is not a static container. It is a 4-dimensional continuum that bends, curves, and stretches in response to mass and energy. What we perceive as gravity is not a force but the warping of geometry itself. Every object, from a grain of sand to a galaxy, reshapes the very dimensions around it. The hidden dimension, once imagined by philosophers, became a measurable reality, a mathematical truth woven into the structure of existence. But Einstein's spacetime is only the beginning. In the strange world of quantum physics, reality grows even stranger. Theories like string theory propose that the universe may contain not just 4, but 10 or 11 dimensions, tiny, curled-up spaces that exist at scales far smaller than atoms. These extra dimensions could explain the fundamental forces of nature, the unification of matter and energy, and perhaps even the origin of consciousness itself. Though invisible, their presence could determine everything we experience in the visible world. What we see may be the shadow of a higher dimensional design. Philosophically, this idea carries profound implications. If our 3-dimensional world is merely a projection of higher dimensions, then everything we perceive, every object, every event, even the passage of time, may be an echo of something beyond. Plato's allegory of the cave comes to life in a new way, humanity staring at the shadows of hyperdimensional truth flickering on the walls of spacetime. The forms we touch are not ultimate reality, they are the geometric illusions cast by a deeper order. Emotionally, the hidden dimension evokes both wonder and fear. To imagine dimensions beyond our own is to confront the limits of comprehension. It is a humbling reminder that reality is infinitely larger than the human mind can fully grasp. Yet within that humility lies exhilaration, the realization that existence is richer, more mysterious, and more interconnected than we ever dreamed. It means that every line, every angle, every motion in our world may be a trace of something eternal, unfolding just beyond our perception. Throughout history, mystics and visionaries described experiences that mirror this multidimensional awareness. Moments when time dissolves, when space folds, when reality feels simultaneously infinite and intimate. Modern neuroscience cannot fully explain these experiences, but geometry can offer a metaphor. Consciousness may be the fourth dimension of the mind, the invisible axis through which we experience the three-dimensional world. When awareness expands, so too does the space of reality. Perhaps the hidden dimension is not out there, but within, the inner geometry of perception itself. In nature, echoes of higher dimensions can be found everywhere. The spiral of a galaxy, the helix of DNA, the structure of subatomic particles, all hint at dimensions folded into themselves. Fractals, too, seem to bridge the gap, repeating infinitely no matter how deep we go. The more we zoom in or out, the more we see patterns that defy three-dimensional limitation. It is as though reality is a hologram, each part containing the whole, each dimension mirroring another. Ultimately, the hidden dimension is not just a scientific concept. It is a philosophical key. It reminds us that the visible world is not all there is. What we call matter is shadow, what we call space is pathway, what we call life is a projection of something vaster, more profound. Geometry does not end at the edge of perception. It extends infinitely inward and outward, into dimensions our minds can barely imagine. As the camera drifts through a tesseract, spinning through impossible angles, galaxies unfolding like origami across unseen planes, the narration fades into a whisper. We are three-dimensional beings glimpsing a multidimensional truth. The scene dissolves into silence, leaving only the sense that the boundaries of space have melted, and with them the boundaries of understanding. The hidden dimension remains unseen, yet its presence is everywhere, shaping the universe, shaping thought, shaping existence itself. Life, in all its breathtaking complexity, seems chaotic on the surface, a tangle of cells, molecules, and motion, governed by chance and chemistry. Yet when we look deeper beneath the surface of biology, a stunning realization emerges. Life itself is geometric. Every cell, every structure, every living form is built upon invisible mathematical order. From the spiraling code of DNA to the crystalline lattice of minerals in our bones, the blueprint of life follows precise patterns, repeating, evolving, and harmonizing in sacred proportion. Geometry is not just the language of physics. It is the architecture of biology, the design through which the universe organizes the miracle of living matter. At the smallest scale, the geometry of life begins with the cell, the fundamental unit of existence. Under the microscope, a single cell appears simple, but its structure is a masterpiece of organization. The membrane forms a perfect boundary, a sphere, nature's most efficient shape for enclosing energy with minimal surface area. Inside, organelles arrange themselves with purposeful symmetry, balancing function and form. Even the way cells divide, through mitosis and meiosis, follows exact geometric sequences, splitting into mirrored halves before replicating into complex networks. The hexagonal packing of cells in honeycomb tissue or the spiral arrangement of bacterial flagella are not random. They are nature's way of achieving maximum efficiency through minimal form. But nowhere does this geometry reveal itself more elegantly than in DNA, the very code of life. The double helix, twisting upward like a cosmic ladder, is a geometric marvel. Its spiral structure follows the same mathematical principles that govern galaxies and seashells, the logarithmic spiral and the golden ratio. Each twist of the helix measures 34 angstroms in length and 21 angstroms in width, two numbers from the Fibonacci sequence. This is not poetic coincidence. It is evidence that the same mathematical relationships found in the cosmos also govern the smallest mechanisms of life. DNA is a living bridge between mathematics and biology, a molecular mandala where geometry becomes the script of creation. Even beyond DNA, geometry shapes life's every form. The branching of trees, the veins in leaves, the structure of lungs and blood vessels, all follow fractal patterns repeating self-similarity across scales. The way rivers branch mirrors the way neurons connect in the brain, the way lightning forks through clouds, or how roots spread through soil. These systems are not designed by human intelligence, yet they all converge toward the same fractal logic. Nature has discovered what mathematicians only later described, that fractal geometry is the most efficient way to distribute energy and information throughout a complex system. Whether in forests, bodies, or entire ecosystems, life organizes itself geometrically to survive and thrive. In the animal kingdom, geometry manifests in breathtaking variety. the hexagonal perfection of a honeycomb, the spiraling horns of rams, the pentagonal symmetry of starfish, the precise arrangement of scales on a pine cone. Each one follows the same mathematical ratios that underlie the golden mean. Birds' feathers align in logarithmic spirals to reduce turbulence during flight. The shell of a nautilus expands according to the same sequence found in sunflower seeds and hurricanes. The more we study the natural world, the more we see that beauty and function are inseparable, both born from the same hidden geometry. Human beings are no exception. Our anatomy, too, reflects the same proportions that govern the stars. The ratio between the length of the arm and the hand, the structure of the face, the placement of the navel along the height of the body, all approximate phi, the golden ratio. Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man captured this divine symmetry, revealing that the human form is not arbitrary but geometrically harmonized. Our DNA, our body, our perception, all tuned to the same mathematical frequencies that resonate throughout the universe. When we look at ourselves, we are looking at geometry made flesh. On a microscopic level, geometry orchestrates the very processes that sustain life. Proteins fold into specific three-dimensional structures dictated by geometric angles. Viruses assemble into icosahedral shells, maximizing strength and minimizing material, nature's perfect design efficiency. The spirals of DNA replicate according to rhythmic timing patterns, guided by electromagnetic resonance and geometric constraints. Even the way light interacts with biological structures, the iridescence of butterfly wings, the shimmer of fish scales, arises from microscopic geometric layering that manipulates wavelengths. Geometry is not merely visible. It is active, governing every interaction between matter, energy, and consciousness. But the geometry of life extends beyond physical form. It touches behavior, evolution, and even consciousness itself. Flocks of birds, schools of fish, and herds of animals move in geometric formations, responding collectively as if part of a single organism. This phenomenon, known as swarm intelligence, mirrors the structure of neural networks and even galaxies, countless points of awareness moving within a unified geometric field. These living geometries embody a profound truth, that intelligence itself may arise not from chaos, but from order, from harmony between parts that follow geometric laws of connection. Philosophically, this realization reshapes how we see existence. Life is not a random accident of chemistry. It is the flowering of geometry through time. Matter organizes itself into life the way sound organizes sand into cymatic patterns, through resonance, vibration, and proportion. Each organism, each consciousness, is a unique variation on the same geometric theme. We are not separate from the mathematical patterns of the universe, we are their living expression. The spiral in a fern and the spiral in a galaxy are not merely similar, they are the same pattern, expressing itself at different scales of reality. Emotionally, this understanding evokes a sense of unity, a sacred intimacy with the natural world. To see geometry in life is to recognize that creation is not divided between the living and the non-living, the organic and the mechanical. Everything is part of the same fractal continuum. The difference between a star and a cell is one of scale, not essence. The geometry that gives birth to galaxies also pulses in our blood, breathes through our lungs, and dreams through our minds. Life is the universe becoming aware of its own design. And as the camera glides from the swirl of DNA to the spiral of galaxies, the narration slows, the music deepens, a meditation on connection. The geometry of life is not just structure, it is purpose, intelligence, consciousness. It reveals that existence itself is an act of design, a living equation forever balancing complexity and simplicity. To see it is to glimpse the sacred, the invisible pattern that sustains everything from the humblest bacterium to the stars that illuminate the night. The final words echo like a soft revelation. Life is geometry in motion, consciousness crystallized into form. Every heartbeat, every leaf, every breath is part of that eternal design. The blueprint of life is not written in stone or scripture. It is written in the curves of creation itself, an endless spiral returning always to the same truth. Existence is order, and order is alive. At the smallest scale of reality, far beyond the reach of ordinary perception, lies a world that defies logic. A realm where matter dissolves into probability, where existence flickers like light caught between being and nothingness. This is the quantum world, an ocean of vibrating energy, invisible yet foundational to everything we know. Here, the familiar rules of space and time no longer apply. Instead, what governs creation is a hidden geometry, patterns of vibration and symmetry that underlie every atom, every particle, every flicker of consciousness. It is here, in this strange and sacred dimension, that the very architecture of existence reveals its most profound secret, that reality itself may be geometric at its core. Quantum mechanics, the science of the very small, paints a universe of astonishing beauty and contradiction. Particles behave as both matter and wave, presence and possibility. They exist in multiple states at once, collapsing into a definite form only when observed. Beneath this mystery, however, lies order, mathematical precision so intricate that it feels almost divine. At this level, geometry is no longer something we draw on paper. It is the invisible framework of existence itself. Every subatomic particle has a form, a vibration, a field of resonance. The electron orbits the nucleus not in random chaos, but in precise probability waves, geometric standing patterns determined by energy levels. The orbitals of hydrogen, the simplest atom, take on beautiful flower-like shapes when visualized, spheres, petals, and toruses of probability that echo sacred symbols found in ancient art. The deeper we look, the more we see geometry, circles, spirals, and lattice structures forming the invisible matrix of all matter. Physicists now describe particles not as solid things, but as excitations within underlying fields. These fields are waves, oscillations of geometry that ripple through spacetime. Everything that exists, light, matter, energy, is a vibration within this grand quantum field. The forms these vibrations take are not random, they follow geometric laws. Symmetry, balance, and resonance dictate how energy organizes itself, just as a musical note arises from the tension and vibration of a string. In this sense, the universe is not made of particles, it is made of patterns. The most striking expression of this idea is the quantum mandala, the geometric unity that connects all scales of existence. In Eastern philosophy, a mandala represents the structure of the cosmos, a perfect balance between chaos and order, between the infinite and the finite. In quantum physics we find the same principle, a web of interconnected forms, each influencing the other through resonance. Every atom is a mandala of energy, every molecule a dance of symmetries. When seen from afar, galaxies resemble atomic orbits. When seen up close, subatomic particles mimic cosmic systems. The micro and the macro are reflections of the same sacred pattern, the geometry of reality folding in upon itself. Quantum entanglement, one of the most mysterious phenomena in science, further deepens this geometric vision. When two particles become entangled, they behave as a single system, no matter how far apart they are in space. Change the state of one, and the other responds instantly, as though distance were an illusion. This connection, faster than light, defies our classical understanding of space and time. But if the universe is fundamentally geometric, a unified field where all points are connected in higher dimensions, then entanglement is not magic, it is simply geometry expressing itself beyond our three-dimensional comprehension. In this realm, even emptiness is not truly empty. What we call the vacuum of space is alive with invisible structure. Quantum foam, a seething field of energy fluctuations. Within it, particles continuously appear and vanish, giving rise to the fabric of reality. Physicists describe this vacuum energy through geometric models. Tessellations, networks, and fields of symmetry that expand and contract in perfect mathematical harmony. The void, it turns out, is not chaos. It is order in its purest, most abstract form. And yet, this geometry of the quantum world is not static. It moves, breathes, and evolves, a dynamic dance of probability and form. The simplest quantum systems produce interference patterns, ripples of possibility that behave like waves intersecting on the surface of water. These patterns, when frozen in time, resemble sacred geometries like the flower of life or the Sri Yantra. The same visual motifs that mystics once used to represent cosmic creation now emerge naturally from mathematical equations. What was once symbolic is now literal, the shapes of the sacred revealed in the mathematics of the microscopic. String theory pushes this vision even further. It suggests that all particles are not points, but tiny vibrating strings of energy, each string resonating at a specific frequency, like notes in a vast cosmic symphony. Different vibrations produce different particles, just as musical notes produce different sounds. The geometry of these strings, their loops, twists, and oscillations, determines the properties of all matter and force in the universe. In this model, everything that exists, from photons to planets, is music made visible, a resonance within an 11-dimensional geometric reality. Philosophically, this raises an extraordinary question. If geometry gives rise to particles and particles give rise to matter, then what gives rise to geometry? What consciousness, what intelligence, is responsible for the design of the quantum mandala? Some physicists speak of the mind of the universe, an organizing principle embedded within the laws of mathematics themselves. Others suggest that consciousness may not emerge from matter, but rather that matter emerges within consciousness, as geometry crystallized from awareness. The two interpretations, scientific and spiritual, once again converge, each completing what the other cannot fully explain. Emotionally, to witness this hidden order is to feel both awe and intimacy. Awe, because the universe is infinitely more mysterious and intelligent than we ever imagined. Intimacy, because we are not separate from it. The atoms of our bodies obey the same laws, resonate with the same geometry, and shimmer with the same quantum music as the stars. The geometry that shapes the cosmos also shapes our thoughts, our heartbeat, our awareness. We are quantum mandalas, consciousness observing itself through form. As the narration slows, the visuals shift between vast galactic spirals and subatomic orbits, mirroring one another until scale itself loses meaning. The same geometry pulses in both directions, infinite above, infinite below. The voice speaks softly as if revealing a secret long forgotten. The deeper we look into matter, the less matter we find. Only vibration. Only form. Only geometry, the silent code that turns emptiness into everything. And in that moment, the boundary between science and spirituality dissolves. The quantum mandala is not a metaphor. It is the true face of existence, a living geometry of consciousness vibrating through eternity, forever creating, forever unfolding. Throughout history, humanity has drawn a line between mathematics and metaphysics, one belonging to logic and proof, the other to mystery and meaning. Yet as our understanding of the universe deepens, that boundary begins to blur. The more we uncover through science, the more we realize that numbers, patterns, and geometric relationships are not human inventions but fundamental realities. They seem to exist independently of the physical world, as if mathematics itself were a dimension of being, a code underlying everything. The question grows louder with every discovery: are we creating mathematics to describe the universe, or are we discovering a language that already exists within it? When mathematics meets metaphysics, geometry becomes not just a tool of measurement, but a revelation of consciousness itself. At the core of this inquiry lies an ancient idea, that numbers and shapes are eternal forms, existing beyond space and time. Plato called them the realm of ideals, pure archetypes that physical objects imperfectly imitate. A circle drawn in sand may fade, but the idea of a circle, perfect, infinite, and complete, can never be destroyed. To the philosopher, geometry was the shadow of divinity, a bridge between the finite and the infinite. To study it was to commune with eternity itself. Centuries later, this idea finds unexpected support in modern physics. The universe behaves as though it is written in mathematical code. The same equations that describe the orbit of planets also predict the spin of electrons. From the curve of a galaxy to the vibration of a quark, the same geometric principles repeat at every scale. These patterns are not arbitrary. They are consistent, timeless, and absolute, qualities once reserved for the divine. Mathematics does not merely model reality, it seems to generate it. Matter, energy, and even space-time itself emerge from mathematical relationships, as though existence were an expression of geometry unfolding through dimension and time. This realization has led some of the greatest minds in science to approach the edge of metaphysics. Einstein once said that, "The most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible." Why should the human mind, a product of biological evolution, be capable of grasping the deep mathematical order of the cosmos? Why should equations conceived in abstraction perfectly describe physical phenomena billions of light years away? It is as if both the universe and the human mind are attuned to the same underlying logic, two expressions of one deeper intelligence. For the physicist Max Tegmark, this alignment is no coincidence. He proposed the mathematical universe hypothesis, suggesting that the universe is mathematics, not merely governed by it but composed entirely of it. In this view, every object, force, and consciousness arises from pure mathematical structure. The universe is not like a simulation or a model, it is the model itself, a living equation in motion. This notion blurs the line between science and philosophy, drawing us toward an ancient truth rediscovered in modern form: that existence is number, that form is function, that geometry is being. Meanwhile, metaphysics, the philosophy of what lies beyond the physical, has long echoed this idea in symbolic language. The concept of the logos, the word, or the divine thought runs through nearly every tradition. In mystical texts, creation is spoken into being, not by magic but by vibration, pattern, and proportion. In the beginning was the Word, says the Gospel of John, implying a cosmic intelligence shaping matter through language, through ordered vibration. The same concept appears in the Upanishads, where the universe arises from Om, the primordial sound. These ideas, once purely mystical, find uncanny resonance in modern physics, where the fabric of space itself vibrates with measurable frequencies. What the mystics called divine sound, the scientists now call quantum resonance. The convergence of mathematics and metaphysics leads us to a deeper realization. The universe is self-aware through its patterns. Consciousness, too, may be mathematical, not in a mechanical sense but in structure. Neural networks in the brain, when mapped, form fractal geometries almost identical to cosmic web structures on a universal scale. The same mathematical ratios govern the firing of neurons and the clustering of galaxies. This suggests a profound symmetry, that the laws governing the stars also govern the mind that observes them. We are not separate from the equation, we are living within it, and contributing to its solution. Emotionally, this understanding evokes both wonder and unease. It is comforting to think that the universe has an order, that beneath chaos lies meaning. But it is also humbling, for if existence is pure geometry, then free will, emotion, and even individuality may be part of the same equation, variables in an infinite formula. The soul itself may be a resonance within the grand structure, not apart from it but within it, a conscious pattern in the sea of universal order. Still, there is something profoundly spiritual in this realization. The mathematician's pursuit of truth and the mystic's quest for enlightenment are one and the same journey, to understand the structure of reality. One seeks proof, the other seeks experience. Both approach the same summit from different sides of the mountain. At the peak, they find not a man-made construct but a living geometry, an infinite field of relationships, pulsing with awareness. The idea that mathematics and consciousness are intertwined transforms everything we know about existence. If numbers and patterns pre-exist matter, then the universe is not a random explosion of particles. It is a thought made manifest. Reality becomes the expression of awareness organizing itself through proportion, rhythm, and harmony. This means that understanding geometry is not just an intellectual pursuit, it is a spiritual act, an awakening to the unity of mind and cosmos. From this perspective, every formula becomes sacred scripture, every equation a hymn of creation. The Fibonacci sequence is not merely a numerical curiosity, it is the rhythm of life itself. The symmetry of the atom is not coincidence, it is meditation frozen into form. The constant pi, infinite and unending, mirrors the boundlessness of being. Even the void, that mathematical zero, is no longer emptiness, it is potential, the womb of all possibility. As the narration slows, visuals of chalk equations dissolve into galaxies, neurons and sacred mandalas. The voice continues in a hushed reverence. Perhaps the universe is not a machine but a mind, not random but reflective. Perhaps numbers are not invented but remembered. The music swells, bridging the intellectual and the divine. In this synthesis of science and spirit, mathematics and metaphysics merge into one luminous truth, that the geometry of existence is both the law that shapes the cosmos and the consciousness that dreams it. And so, the film leaves us not with answers but with awe. For in the end, when mathematics meets metaphysics, we do not find a cold equation. We find ourselves, the living geometry through which the universe contemplates its own perfection. Imagine the universe as an exquisite machine, vast, elegant, and perfectly calibrated. A system so precise that even the smallest deviation would unravel its harmony. Every orbit, every wavelength, every atom appears to follow mathematical law with uncanny precision. And yet, beneath that order lies a haunting question. If geometry is the code of creation, who or what wrote the code? The more we uncover about the perfection of the cosmos, the deeper the mystery becomes. This is the paradox at the heart of existence, the architect's illusion, the idea that our reality might be both designed and deceiving, structured and simulated, meaningful yet ultimately mysterious. The notion of a cosmic architect is as ancient as human thought itself. The Egyptians called him Thoth, master of measure and form. The Greeks spoke of the demiurge, the divine craftsman who shaped the universe from chaos using geometry as his tool. In Hindu philosophy, Brahma dreams the worlds into being, only for them to dissolve again into the infinite. In every culture, creation is described as a work of design, not random but intentional. Geometry was seen as the divine instrument of this design, the ruler and compass of God. But as science replaced mythology, the metaphor shifted. The architect became the laws of physics themselves, invisible yet omnipresent, shaping reality with flawless precision. Modern cosmology, however, only deepens the sense of enigma. The constants that govern our universe, the speed of light, the charge of the electron, the strength of gravity, are so finely tuned that even the slightest alteration would render life impossible. The probability of such perfect balance arising by chance is astronomically small. Many scientists, including Stephen Hawking and Roger Penrose, have noted this uncanny precision, giving rise to what's known as the fine-tuning problem. The universe appears calibrated as though following a design, yet there is no designer in sight. The laws of geometry and physics operate flawlessly, but their origin remains unexplained. Is this balance the result of divine intelligence, or is it an illusion, a projection of consciousness interpreting order where none exists? The idea of the architect re-emerges in modern philosophy through simulation theory, the proposition that our universe could be a highly advanced construct, a geometric illusion coded by intelligence beyond our comprehension. Just as pixels form images on a screen, the smallest quanta of space and time might be discrete, digital building blocks of a simulated cosmos. In this view, geometry itself is the software of existence, the algorithmic design that makes the illusion of physicality possible. Quantum mechanics, with its probability waves and discrete energy states, supports this idea in eerie ways. Reality, when observed, collapses from infinite potential into definite form, as though consciousness were the observer and the architect simultaneously. But even if we are living within an illusion, the illusion itself is perfect. The mathematics that define spacetime is so exact, so consistent across all scales, that it feels intentional. Einstein once called it the grand design, a phrase that still echoes in the minds of physicists and philosophers alike. Yet he too was unsettled by its implications. God does not play dice with the universe, he declared, rejecting the randomness of quantum mechanics and suggesting that hidden order, a deeper geometry, must exist beneath apparent chaos. Perhaps, then, the architect is not an external entity, but the structure of reality itself, consciousness organizing chaos through geometry. There is also a more unsettling possibility, that the illusion of design arises not from external creation, but from perception itself. The human mind is wired to find patterns, to impose meaning upon randomness. What we interpret as cosmic order might simply be the reflection of our own geometry, the neural patterns of consciousness projected onto the universe. We see symmetry because our brains are built to recognize it. We find proportion beautiful because we are made from it. In this sense, the architect's illusion becomes a mirror. The universe is not deceiving us. We are deceiving ourselves, mistaking our reflection for divine design. Philosophers have wrestled with this paradox for centuries. In Gnostic texts, the demiurge is both creator and deceiver, a being who shapes the physical world but hides the higher truth of pure consciousness behind it. The material realm, in this view, is a simulation, a geometric prison that traps spirit and form. Yet mystics across cultures have turned that same concept on its head, seeing geometry not as confinement but as revelation. To them, the illusion is the teaching. The design, whether divine or simulated, is a stage upon which consciousness learns to recognize itself. The universe may be a projection, but it is a sacred one, a fractal dream in which the dreamer awakens through experience. Modern physics echoes this mystical insight in surprising ways. The holographic principle, a leading theory in quantum gravity, suggests that our three-dimensional universe is a projection of information encoded on a two-dimensional surface. In other words, reality may literally be a hologram, a geometric illusion generated by a deeper layer of information. The patterns that form galaxies, black holes, and atoms all emerge from this hidden code. We are not merely living in geometry. We are geometry, conscious patterns observing themselves through form. Emotionally, the architect's illusion confronts us with both awe and vertigo. Awe, because it implies that we are part of something unimaginably vast and precise. Vertigo, because it suggests that everything we see, the solidity of matter, the flow of time, even the self we believe to be real, may be a mirage. And yet, within that uncertainty lies liberation. For if reality is illusion, then illusion is sacred, the living art of consciousness exploring itself through geometry and form. The architect, then, is not outside us but within us, the observer and the observed, the creator and the created. Perhaps that is the ultimate secret, that there is no single architect, no being standing apart from creation. Instead, the act of creation itself is the architect, an eternal process of geometry unfolding into awareness. Every equation, every fractal, every law of physics is a brushstroke in the great cosmic design, painted by the very intelligence that experiences it. The illusion is not falsehood, it is truth in disguise, geometry masquerading as matter, awareness playing hide-and-seek with itself. As the scene fades, the narration slows over images of infinite fractals and spinning galaxies dissolving into networks of light. If reality is an illusion, the voice whispers, it is the most exquisite illusion imaginable, a dream so perfect that the dreamer forgets they are dreaming. The music swells softly, echoing the paradox of existence. Order and chaos, truth and deception, creator and creation, all one and the same, bound by the geometry of the divine. Symmetry is one of nature's most haunting obsessions, the silent rhythm behind every form, the balance that holds existence together. It is the invisible thread connecting galaxies and snowflakes, atoms and butterflies. Yet, where there is symmetry there is also its opposite, the breaking of it. Without imperfection, the universe would remain static, frozen in eternal stillness. It is through asymmetry, through imbalance and contrast, that life, motion and time are born. The mirror must crack for reflection to become experience. This paradox lies at the heart of one of the most profound scientific and philosophical mysteries ever explored, the mirror universe. In the earliest moments of the cosmos, physicists believed that matter and antimatter were created in perfect symmetry. Every particle had its twin, identical in mass, opposite in charge. If balance had been maintained, the two would have annihilated each other completely, leaving behind nothing but radiation. Yet, somehow, an infinitesimal imbalance, one extra particle of matter for every billion pairs, tipped the scales. That tiny imperfection became the universe we now inhabit. Every planet, every mountain, every living being exists because symmetry broke. In that single act of imbalance, the universe exchanged perfection for creation. This principle, symmetry breaking, is one of the most fundamental forces shaping existence. It occurs everywhere, from the behavior of subatomic particles to the structure of galaxies. When symmetry breaks, diversity emerges. A perfectly spherical cloud of gas collapses into a star. A uniform field of energy differentiates into matter and light. Even the laws of physics, once thought absolute, reveal hidden asymmetries. The weak nuclear force, responsible for radioactive decay, does not behave the same way in a mirror. The universe, it turns out, has a preference, a handedness, choosing one direction over another, one twist over its reflection. Reality itself is biased, and that bias gives rise to everything we know. But what if, somewhere beyond our perception, the balance was restored? What if for every asymmetry in our world, there existed another universe, a perfect mirror, identical yet reversed? The idea of a mirror universe has fascinated physicists and philosophers alike for decades. In theory, such a realm could exist, built from antimatter instead of matter, spinning backward in time, its geometry inverted. Every action here might have a counteraction there, every particle a twin moving in reverse. If our universe expands, perhaps the mirror universe contracts. If our reality moves forward through entropy, its reflection may be descending back toward order. Together, the two could form a complete whole, the yin and yang of the cosmos. The symmetry of existence extends far beyond physics. It is woven into the fabric of art, biology, and consciousness itself. Look closely at a leaf, a shell, a snowflake. Each reveals near-perfect symmetry, yet always with slight deviation. Absolute symmetry, nature seems to say, is sterile. Life thrives on imperfection, on the breaking of the pattern. Even the human body, though bilaterally symmetrical, contains subtle asymmetries. One eye slightly higher, one lung smaller, one side dominant. Our faces, when mirrored, appear eerily lifeless, uncanny. It is imperfection that gives us individuality, character, and soul. The same truth applies to galaxies, to molecules, to all creation. It is the crack in the mirror that lets light through. Philosophically, symmetry holds deep meaning. It represents unity, balance, and divine order, the eternal equilibrium of opposites. Asymmetry, on the other hand, represents evolution, motion, and the unfolding of consciousness. Together they form the pulse of the universe, expansion and contraction, chaos and order, light and darkness. In ancient wisdom traditions, this duality was expressed through the dance of Shiva and Shakti, the balance of yin and yang, the cosmic interplay of creation and destruction. The universe breathes in symmetry and exhales asymmetry. Without this breath, nothing could exist, for perfection alone cannot move. Modern cosmology gives these metaphors mathematical flesh. The equations of particle physics suggest that mirror symmetry might be a fundamental law of nature, one broken only under specific conditions. Some scientists believe that dark matter, the mysterious invisible substance composing most of the universe, could be the matter of a mirror world, a parallel realm that interacts with ours only through gravity. If this is true, then the universe we know is only half of existence, the visible side of a cosmic coin. Somewhere beyond the veil, our reflection continues, unseen, opposite, yet essential. Emotionally, this idea resonates on a deeply human level. Each of us, too, contains mirrors, light and shadow, rational and instinctive, self and other. Our inner worlds echo the dual structure of the cosmos. To grow, we must face our reflection, the parts of ourselves we hide or deny. Just as the universe became real through the breaking of symmetry, so too do we become whole through the reconciliation of our opposites. Every conflict, every contradiction within us is a microcosm of the universe's great divide, the eternal tension that births awareness. The mirror universe is not only a scientific hypothesis, it is a metaphor for perception itself. Every act of observation creates a division between the observer and the observed, the subject and the object. Quantum physics tells us that particles exist in superposition until measured, collapsing into one state or another. The mirror is the act of measurement, the moment consciousness reflects itself. Without the mirror there is no reality, only potential. The act of observing, of becoming aware, breaks the symmetry of possibility and gives form to existence. The universe looks at itself through countless mirrors, stars, atoms, minds, and in doing so becomes real. Yet there is a haunting beauty in knowing that what we call reality might be only one side of the glass. Somewhere, beyond all comprehension, its reflection might move in the opposite direction, mirroring every breath, every heartbeat, every spiral of a galaxy. Perhaps death in this universe is birth in another. Perhaps every ending here is a beginning there. The mirror does not divide, it completes. It ensures that even as entropy devours the cosmos, symmetry remains eternal. As the camera pans across galaxies mirrored in the surface of still water, the narration slows. Symmetry is the dream of perfection, asymmetry is the act of creation. The reflection trembles, distorting into ripples, beauty born from imbalance. The voice continues, softer now, almost reverent. We are the broken mirrors through which the universe learns to see itself. The final image lingers. Two galaxies, one of light, one of shadow, spiraling in opposite directions yet bound by the same center. The balance remains, eternal and unbroken. For even in imperfection, the geometry of the cosmos finds its perfect reflection. Consciousness, the most mysterious phenomenon in the universe, is both everywhere and nowhere. We cannot see it, touch it, or measure it directly, yet it defines our entire experience of existence. Without consciousness, the universe would be silent, unseen, and unfelt. But what if consciousness is not an accident of biology, not a byproduct of the brain, but a fundamental part of the cosmic geometry itself? What if awareness is not something that emerges from matter, but the very structure that gives matter form? This idea, that consciousness is the living geometry of existence, challenges everything we know about reality, perception, and what it means to be alive. From the moment we are born, consciousness begins constructing its inner world. Our thoughts, memories, and emotions weave intricate patterns, networks of relationships, ideas, and associations that mirror the structures of the universe itself. Neuroscientists peering into the brain have discovered something astonishing. The architecture of our neural networks follows the same geometric principles seen in galaxies, ecosystems, and computer simulations of the cosmos. The web of neurons that creates thought mirrors the cosmic web of galaxies that fills the universe. The same fractal structures, branching paths, and feedback loops that govern matter also govern mind. It is as if consciousness were geometry observing itself from within. When viewed under advanced imaging, the brain reveals layers of symmetry and complexity that defy randomness. Neurons branch like trees, their dendrites forming fractal networks that echo the veins of leaves and lightning. Electrical impulses travel in oscillating waves, creating rhythmic patterns of interference and harmony, not unlike cymatic forms, sound frequencies made visible. Every thought is a vibration, every emotion a resonance. The mind, then, is not just a biological machine, it is a living mandala, a geometric symphony woven from energy and awareness. The idea that consciousness may be geometric is not new. Ancient traditions intuited it long before modern science could measure it. In Hindu philosophy, consciousness, chit, is described as the fundamental reality, the field in which all forms arise and dissolve. The mandala used in meditation and ritual symbolizes this principle perfectly, concentric circles and interlocking triangles representing layers of awareness unfolding toward the center. the still point of pure being. In sacred geometry, this center is the source, the point of infinite potential from which all patterns radiate. Consciousness, in this sense, is not a property of the brain but the geometric field in which the brain itself exists. Modern physics and information theory are beginning to echo these ancient intuitions. Theoretical models such as integrated information theory (IIT) suggest that consciousness arises from the organization of information, from the structure and connectivity of systems. The more integrated and complex the pattern, the higher the degree of awareness. In other words, consciousness is the geometry of information, the shape that awareness takes when it reflects upon itself. This means that every system, from a single atom to a galaxy, possesses some degree of consciousness, however faint. Reality itself may be a vast continuum of awareness, structured through form. Quantum physics adds another layer of depth to this mystery. Experiments have shown that particles behave differently when observed, as though consciousness plays an active role in shaping the outcome of physical reality. Observation collapses probability into actuality, transforming waves of potential into definite form. This interaction suggests that awareness and geometry are inseparable. One defines and gives meaning to the other. If geometry is the structure of the universe, then consciousness is the force that illuminates it, the observer that makes the pattern visible. We are not passive witnesses of reality, we are co-creators within its geometry. Emotionally, this realization is both humbling and transcendent. It implies that the boundaries between self and universe, mind and matter, are illusions, useful distinctions but not fundamental truths. Our thoughts ripple through the same field of geometry that structures the stars. When we feel love, awe, or inspiration, we are not generating energy, we are aligning with it, resonating with the deeper harmonies of the cosmos. Consciousness is not trapped inside the skull, it radiates through the fabric of existence, connecting all living forms in a shared geometric field. Fractals offer a vivid metaphor for this unity. A fractal is a pattern that repeats infinitely, each smaller piece containing the essence of the whole. Consciousness functions in the same way. Every individual mind is a smaller expression of universal awareness. Just as a drop of water reflects the ocean, every conscious being reflects the totality of existence. In this sense, individuality is not separation but participation. Each of us is a node within the vast web of awareness, geometry made alive through perception. Even the emotions and intuitions that shape our lives follow geometric principles. Heart rhythms, brainwaves, and breathing patterns all form fractal and harmonic relationships. States of peace, meditation, or deep creativity synchronize these rhythms into coherence, a state measurable as geometric harmony within the brain and heart fields. In those moments, we experience connection, expansion, transcendence. We feel one with everything because, in truth, we are our consciousness resonating perfectly with the geometry of existence. This perspective redefines life and death as well. If consciousness is a fundamental geometry, then it cannot be destroyed, only transformed. The body, like all physical forms, follows cycles of creation and decay, but awareness is not bound to form. It is the underlying field that gives rise to it. Just as a wave rises and falls without ever leaving the ocean, consciousness moves through birth and death without ever ceasing to exist. Life is geometry taking shape. Death is geometry returning to stillness. Philosophically, the idea of consciousness as geometry unites science, spirituality, and art into one seamless vision. Science reveals the measurable structures of form. Spirituality experiences their meaning. Art expresses their beauty. Together, they form the trinity of understanding, the threefold geometry through which the universe contemplates itself. The artist draws it, the scientist quantifies it, and the mystic becomes it. In each act, the same truth unfolds. Awareness and structure are one. As the film's imagery slows, the camera moves through layers of neural pathways, blooming flowers and spinning galaxies, all sharing the same spiraling, recursive form. The narration deepens. Consciousness is not contained within us. We are contained within consciousness. It is the living geometry, the field in which thought becomes form and form becomes thought again. The music swells into a soft, harmonic vibration, neither beginning nor ending but flowing endlessly like breath. And in that moment the viewer senses it, the silent pulse behind every heartbeat, every atom, every star. Consciousness is not an illusion of matter. Matter is the visible dream of consciousness. The geometry of existence is alive, and we are its awakening. Space and time, the twin pillars upon which all reality seems to rest. They shape our every thought, define our every motion, and hold together the very fabric of existence. Yet what if they are not fundamental at all? What if space and time are not the structure of reality, but the illusion through which reality expresses itself? What if geometry, not chronology, is the true foundation, and what we perceive as movement through time is simply consciousness traveling across layers of form? To entertain such an idea is to pull the thread that unravels everything we think we know about existence. For when space and time dissolve, what remains is something far deeper, a timeless geometry, infinite and alive. We experience time as a river, flowing steadily from past to future, carrying us forward in a current we cannot resist. But physics tells a different story. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, time is not a flow but a dimension, inseparable from space. Together they form the four-dimensional fabric of spacetime, a flexible continuum that bends, curves, and warps in response to energy and mass. What we perceive as time passing is not the universe moving, but our consciousness tracing a path through this fabric moment by moment. Past, present, and future all coexist simultaneously in this geometric structure. The illusion of progression arises only because we can perceive one slice of the whole at a time. In this sense, time is not linear, it is layered. Each moment exists eternally within the geometry of spacetime, a frame in an infinite film reel, already written, already complete. The ticking of a clock, the beating of a heart, the decay of a star, all are expressions of geometry unfolding itself according to pattern and proportion. To move forward in time is to move along a geometric axis, to shift our perspective through the ever-present structure of being. This means that the past is not gone, and the future is not yet, they are simply hidden coordinates in the same eternal field. Space too is not what it seems. We imagine it as emptiness, a vast container within which matter exists. But modern physics suggests otherwise. At the quantum level, space is not empty but alive, a frothing sea of energy and information, a geometric web that gives rise to everything within it. The positions of objects are not fixed points in a void but relationships within a lattice of geometry. What separates one particle from another is not distance but vibration, frequency, and resonance. Space, in this view, is the canvas of consciousness, a holographic field in which every point contains the information of the whole. We are not in space, we are space momentarily self-aware. The ancient mystics, long before relativity or quantum mechanics, spoke of the same truth in symbolic form. They described the universe as Maya, the great illusion, a projection of consciousness into the dimensions of space and time. To them, the physical world was a sacred dream, a play of light and shadow upon the eternal. Time, they said, was not something that passed but something that unfolded, like the petals of a lotus, revealing ever deeper layers of reality. All that was, is, and shall be, wrote the Egyptians, exists in one eternal moment. What modern science now calls the block universe, mystics have always called eternity. But if time and space are illusions, what, then, is real? The answer, increasingly, points to geometry, the timeless structure that gives rise to the illusion of movement and distance. The shapes of energy fields, the curvature of spacetime, the fractal patterns of galaxies and atoms, all express a single underlying principle, relationship. Geometry is not bound by time because it is time, frozen into form. It does not exist within space because it is space, structured awareness made visible. Matter, motion, and causality are shadows cast by the geometry of being, illuminated by consciousness itself. Quantum physics offers glimpses of this truth in the phenomenon of entanglement. Two particles, separated by light years, remain instantaneously connected, as though the concept of distance does not apply to them. This suggests that space itself may be emergent, an effect, not a cause, arising from deeper informational geometry. Similarly, quantum experiments show that time can behave non-linearly. Events can influence one another across temporal boundaries. The flow of time, it seems, is not fundamental but experiential, the mind's way of perceiving change within a timeless structure. Philosophically, this transforms our understanding of reality and self. If space and time are illusions, then we are not travelers through the universe, we are the universe observing itself through geometric perspective. Consciousness does not move, it focuses, shifting its awareness from one coordinate of experience to another. What we call now is simply the point of intersection where awareness meets the infinite pattern. Each moment is a window into eternity, and eternity is not endless time but the absence of time altogether. Emotionally, this realization evokes a strange mixture of liberation and vertigo. Liberation because it means that death, loss, and change are not the end, they are transitions within the geometry of being. Vertigo because it dissolves the solid ground of what we call reality. The comfort of linear progression gives way to the infinite stillness of the eternal present. Yet within that stillness lies a profound peace, the recognition that everything that has ever happened and will ever happen already is existing simultaneously within the great geometric mandala of existence. The implications extend even to consciousness itself. Our thoughts, memories, and experiences do not move through time. They exist as patterns within the field of awareness. Meditation, deep focus, or mystical experience can sometimes dissolve our sense of time altogether. Moments stretch, collapse, or vanish. In these states, we glimpse reality as it truly is, boundless, timeless, and perfectly still. The illusion of space and time fades, revealing geometry as the silent, luminous architecture of awareness. Perhaps, then, time is the shadow that consciousness casts upon geometry. When awareness moves through form, we call it history. When it rests in stillness, we call it eternity. Both are true, two perspectives of the same infinite reality. The illusion of time allows consciousness to experience change, growth, and story, to transform static perfection into dynamic beauty. The illusion of space allows awareness to differentiate itself, to create the dance of separation and unity. Without these illusions, the universe would be complete but unexpressed, pure potential without experience. As the film's imagery unfolds, we see stars swirling into spirals, galaxies bending into curvature, atoms vibrating in rhythm, all connected by the same invisible geometry. The narration slows. Space and time are not the stage upon which the universe performs. They are the performance itself, a projection of geometry into perception. The music fades into silence, leaving only the image of a circle collapsing into a point of light, the infinite folding into the now. In that moment, the truth becomes clear. The illusion of space and time is not a deception but a gift, the way the timeless expresses itself as story, the way the infinite learns to see itself in motion. When geometry dreams, it becomes time. When consciousness awakens, time disappears. And in that awakening, the illusion of reality reveals its secret. It was never illusion at all, but the eternal geometry of being playing itself into form. For centuries, humankind has searched for the hidden key that unites the countless mysteries of the universe, the one thread that connects atoms to galaxies, energy to matter, consciousness to creation. Scientists call it the theory of everything. Mystics call it divine order. Both seek the same truth, that behind the infinite diversity of existence lies one unified pattern, a geometry so fundamental that all of reality emerges from it. This is the unified pattern, the invisible architecture that ties every scale of being together, from the heartbeat of an atom to the spiraling motion of galaxies. It is the sacred symmetry that weaves chaos and order into one eternal fabric. When we look closely at nature, we see this unity everywhere. The branching of rivers mirrors the veins in a leaf. The structure of neurons reflects the filaments of cosmic matter that span billions of light years. The same ratios, spirals, and fractal progressions repeat endlessly across scales. Physicists call this self-similarity, philosophers call it reflection, mystics call it oneness. But it is all the same thing, geometry unfolding across dimensions, replicating its eternal design in infinite variation. The universe is not a collection of disconnected objects. It is a single, self-organizing field of geometry, eternally folding into itself. In modern science, this realization has taken on breathtaking clarity. From quantum mechanics to cosmology, geometry has emerged as the common language underlying all forces. The electromagnetic field, gravity, and even the strong and weak nuclear forces, once thought to be distinct, all reveal themselves as different expressions of geometric curvature. Einstein's relativity showed that gravity is not a force at all, but the bending of spacetime geometry. Quantum field theory goes deeper still, describing all matter as vibrational excitations within geometric fields of energy. Theoretical physicists now suspect that everything from light to consciousness arises from the same underlying pattern, an infinite web of relationships where geometry dictates form, and form dictates experience. In ancient times, this same realization was expressed through myth and symbol. The flower of life, the tree of life, the Sri Yantra, and the Ouroboros all depict the same essential truth: unity through pattern, eternity through proportion. These sacred geometries were not artistic flourishes. They were maps of the cosmos, diagrams of the unified field long before science found its equations. The Egyptians inscribed them on temple walls, the Greeks carved them into marble, and the mystics of the East meditated upon them as living expressions of the divine. To them, the universe was not mechanical, it was alive, conscious, intelligent. Each geometric form was a word in the universal language of creation. Today, as physics pushes deeper into the subatomic and cosmological realms, these ancient insights find new resonance. The holographic principle suggests that the entire universe is encoded on a vast two-dimensional surface, projected into three-dimensional experience, a cosmic illusion governed by mathematical symmetry. String theory expands this vision, proposing that all matter and energy arise from infinitesimal strings vibrating in multidimensional geometric space. Even consciousness itself, once dismissed as unquantifiable, is beginning to be described through geometry, the integration and resonance of information fields. The same patterns recur again and again: toroidal flows, fractal recursion, spirals, and symmetry breaking. Every law, every phenomenon, every movement, all are different expressions of the same unified geometry. But the unified pattern is not merely theoretical, it is experiential. We feel it in the rhythm of our heartbeat, in the cadence of our breath, in the cycles of seasons, and in the harmony of sound. Music, for instance, is geometry made audible, frequencies arranged in ratios that create beauty and resonance. Art is geometry made visible, the arrangement of form and proportion that evokes meaning. Even emotion follows geometric flow, expanding, contracting, circling, and spiraling in the same patterns as galaxies and waves. The human body itself is a fractal organism, a microcosm of the cosmic whole. The ratio of our bones, the rhythm of our hearts, the neural networks of our brain, all mirror the same geometry that builds worlds. We are living expressions of the unified pattern. Emotionally, this realization is overwhelming. A deep recognition that everything, from the simplest vibration to the grandest supercluster, is connected by invisible harmony. It evokes awe, humility, and belonging all at once. We are not random anomalies in a cold universe. We are essential notes in its grand composition. Each thought, each movement, each act of awareness sends ripples through the same field that holds galaxies in orbit. When we breathe, we are participating in the rhythm of creation itself. The unified pattern is not only what is, it is what we are. Philosophically, this unity erases the false boundaries between science and spirituality. Where science describes the mechanics, spirituality describes the meaning. Both are facets of the same truth. The physicist and the mystic gaze at the same geometry, one through equations, the other through meditation, and both glimpse the infinite. Geometry becomes the meeting point of reason and revelation, intellect and intuition. It is the bridge between measurable reality and the ineffable mystery that gives rise to it. To study geometry, then, is not merely to learn mathematics, it is to approach the divine through logic, to find the sacred within the structure of form. Even chaos, that which seems random or destructive, obeys the unified pattern. The turbulence of a storm, the birth of a star, the firing of neurons, the fluctuations of the stock market, all follow fractal laws, infinite self-similarity across scale. Chaos is not disorder, it is order too complex to predict. Within apparent randomness hides a deeper coherence, geometry dancing at frequencies beyond our perception. The unified pattern embraces it all: light and shadow, harmony and discord, creation and decay. Every collapse gives birth to new structure, every destruction to renewal. The universe is not a static design but a living process, symmetry forever breaking and reforming to explore its own possibilities. The realization of this unity transforms how we see ourselves and our place in the cosmos. Separation dissolves. Fear diminishes. The boundaries between self and universe, matter and spirit, life and death blur into one vast continuum of being. We begin to understand that the same intelligence that guides the growth of a crystal also guides our thoughts and dreams. The same geometry that shapes the orbit of planets shapes the unfolding of human destiny. Life is not in the universe. Life is the universe expressing itself through geometry, awareness, and form. As the scene unfolds, the camera drifts seamlessly between scales, from swirling galaxies to blooming flowers, from neurons firing to ocean waves breaking, all moving with the same rhythmic grace. The narration softens, almost reverent. Everything that exists is a note in the same eternal song. Patterns within patterns, harmonies within harmonies. The universe is not separate parts, but one vast geometry, dreaming itself through light and motion. The music rises, a slow crescendo of strings and choirs, echoing the pulse of creation. The final words resonate like a prayer. The unified pattern is not something we discover. It is something we remember, the geometry of existence awakening within us. And as the screen fades to darkness, only the sound of a heartbeat remains, the simplest geometry of all, reminding us that the rhythm of the cosmos and the rhythm of life are one and the same. The more deeply we peer into the geometry of existence, the more we encounter a paradox, that the universe, no matter how vast or intricate, cannot be fully separated from the consciousness that observes it. Every discovery, every theory, every equation leads us back to the same haunting realization: the observer is part of the observed. The act of seeing changes what is seen. The very structure of reality shifts depending on the presence of awareness. This is the observer's paradox, the ultimate mirror through which the universe looks upon itself and finds no boundary between subject and object, between the dream and the dreamer. In quantum mechanics, this paradox takes its most famous form: the observer effect. Subatomic particles, when unobserved, exist as clouds of probability, waves of potential spread across space. But the moment they are measured, they collapse into a single state, as if awareness itself decides which version of reality will become actual. The double-slit experiment remains one of the most elegant demonstrations of this mystery. When electrons are fired through two slits without observation, they behave like waves, creating interference patterns on the other side, a geometric fingerprint of possibility. But when scientists watch them, they behave like particles, choosing a definite path. Observation does not simply record reality, it creates it. The geometry of existence responds to the presence of the observer like a mirror adjusting to its own reflection. This strange truth has led to profound philosophical questions. If observation determines outcome, then what was the universe before there were observers to perceive it? Did stars burn? Did galaxies spiral? Did time even flow without consciousness to witness it? Some scientists propose that reality is participatory, that the universe exists because it is observed, and that consciousness and matter are entangled in a feedback loop of creation. Others go further, suggesting that the universe itself is conscious, that awareness is not a product of evolution, but the foundation from which evolution arises. In both views, geometry becomes the interface, the invisible screen upon which mind and matter interact, translating awareness into form and form back into awareness. The ancients spoke of this same mystery in mythic terms. They said that the world exists because the divine perceives it, that creation is sustained by the gaze of God. In Hindu philosophy, this is the Leela, the cosmic play, where the universe is both stage and performer, both illusion and truth. In Buddhist thought, the observer and the observed are two sides of the same coin. Reality has no independent existence apart from awareness. Even Plato hinted at this unity, suggesting that the world we see is only the shadow of a deeper, immaterial truth perceived through the light of mind. Long before quantum theory, the sages understood, the universe does not stand apart from consciousness. It is consciousness frozen into geometry. Neuroscience now finds striking parallels. When we observe the world, our brain does not passively record reality, it constructs it. Light enters the eyes as raw data, mere frequencies and wavelengths, yet the mind transforms these into color, depth, and meaning. Every image we see is a mental model, a geometric reconstruction of sensory input. In this sense, the external world we perceive is an inner creation projected outward, a shared hallucination shaped by collective perception. What we call reality is the alignment of countless observers agreeing upon a pattern within the infinite potential of consciousness. This realization carries profound emotional weight. It means that perception is participation, that by simply existing, we are co-creating the universe. Every thought, every act of attention, every emotion ripples through the fabric of geometry, subtly altering the field. Awareness is not passive, it is creative. When we gaze at the stars gaze back through us. When we wonder about the universe wonders through us. The observer's paradox is not a flaw in logic. It is the revelation that logic itself is a construct within the geometry of awareness. And yet, this truth also carries unsettling implications. If reality depends on observation, then what is objective truth? Can anything exist independently of perception? Modern interpretations of quantum mechanics, like the many-worlds theory, suggest that every possible outcome of every event exists simultaneously in a vast multiverse, infinite parallel realities branching with each act of observation. In one universe, the electron passes through the left slit, in another, the right. Each version is real in its own dimension, created through the geometry of awareness interacting with potential. The observer does not simply collapse reality, they multiply it eternally. Philosophically, the observer's paradox dissolves the duality between self and cosmos. The boundary between in here and out there fades. Consciousness is not confined to the skull or the body, it extends outward, entwined with the geometry of existence. The mystic experiences this directly in states of transcendence, moments when the self dissolves into unity and awareness expands beyond identity. Time slows, distance vanishes, and the distinction between observer and observed disappears. In that silence, reality reveals itself not as something to be known, but as something being known, awareness aware of itself. In this realization lies both awe and humility. Awe, because it means that consciousness participates in the grand architecture of reality. Humility, because it means that our understanding will always be partial, refracted through the lens of perception. We are both architects and inhabitants of the same structure, unable to stand outside it. The act of seeking the truth is itself part of the geometry that defines it. The search for meaning is not separate from meaning, it is meaning unfolding through awareness. This paradox also redefines the notion of creation. If consciousness shapes geometry, then every thought, every intention becomes an act of creation. Our inner world is not isolated, it interacts with the outer world through resonance. Fear, love, wonder, curiosity, these emotions are vibrations that influence the collective geometry of consciousness. The more coherent and harmonious our inner geometry becomes, the more coherent the external world reflects it. The observer's paradox thus transforms into a moral principle. What we perceive is what we project. The world becomes the mirror of our awareness. In this light, the purpose of consciousness may not be to conquer or control reality, but to awaken within it, to recognize itself as both participant and creator. The universe, then, is not a static design but a living dialogue, an endless conversation between geometry and awareness. Every discovery, every question, every act of perception is a moment in that dialogue, the cosmos learning to see itself more clearly through us. As the visuals unfold, galaxies shimmer like neurons firing in a universal brain. Fractal patterns morph into eyes, mirrors, and spirals of light. The narration deepens into a whisper, the observer and the observed are one. The universe does not exist outside your awareness, it arises within it. Every thought is a reflection in the infinite mirror of being. The music slows and a single moment of silence follows, a silence heavy with understanding. For in that silence the observer realizes the final truth, there was never an other to observe. There was only consciousness, endlessly folding into form, watching itself awaken in infinite reflections. In the beginning, before time, before matter, before light itself, there was only pattern. Not pattern as lines or shapes, but as potential, pure geometry existing beyond dimension, beyond comprehension. From this invisible lattice of possibility, the universe unfolded, like music arising from silence. Every atom, every star, every thought that would ever exist was already encoded within that primordial design, waiting to be expressed. And now, after all the spirals of evolution, all the births and deaths of worlds, consciousness stands at the edge of understanding, peering back into the mystery from which it came. What it discovers there is both humbling and divine. The geometry that built the cosmos is the same geometry that gives rise to awareness itself. This is the secret geometry of existence, the revelation that the universe is not made of form but as form, not a creation separate from the creator, but creation and creator as one. Every path explored throughout this journey, from the golden ratio to the quantum field, from ancient temples to modern equations, converges here at the same truth. Everything that exists is part of a unified geometric consciousness. The patterns of the cosmos are not coincidences of physics, but expressions of a living intelligence. Geometry is not merely the structure of the universe, it is the language through which the universe thinks. Each spiral, each symmetry, each proportion is a thought form of creation, and every mind that perceives it is part of that same cosmic thought reflecting upon itself. Existence is awareness dreaming in form. Imagine, for a moment, the entirety of reality as a boundless mandala, an infinite design without beginning or end. Every galaxy, every heartbeat, every particle of dust is one brushstroke in that grand composition. The sacred shapes that we once carved in stone or painted in color were not inventions. They were reflections, glimpses of the divine geometry woven through the fabric of all being. When the ancients spoke of the music of the spheres, they were describing this harmony, the resonance of matter and energy vibrating in proportion. Science now measures it as frequency and wavelength, but the experience remains the same. Existence is harmony. The universe does not move through geometry, it is geometry, vibrating itself into experience through infinite precision. At every level, this sacred geometry repeats. The spiral of a galaxy mirrors the coil of DNA, the hexagon of a snowflake echoes the pattern of honeycombs and crystals. The electromagnetic fields that shape the planets trace the same curves as the aurora dancing across polar skies. These are not accidents, they are signatures of the same consciousness manifesting through different frequencies. Geometry is the fingerprint of creation, proving that all forms, from the smallest atom to the largest supercluster, arise from one mathematical breath. The universe breathes in proportion. But what lies beyond form, beyond geometry itself? The answer may be consciousness, pure and unbounded. Geometry, after all, is awareness arranging itself into pattern. The laws of physics, the constants of nature, even the limits of perception are scaffolding, ways for infinity to understand itself. The paradox is sublime. The universe builds boundaries so that the boundless can experience. Consciousness folds itself into geometry to see its own reflection. Space, time, matter, and mind are not separate domains but nested layers of one self-knowing system. Awareness exploring its own design through experience. Philosophically, this means that existence is not a static object to be studied, but an unfolding relationship, a living dialogue between the perceiver and the perceived. We, as observers, are not standing outside the geometry of the cosmos. We are expressions of it. The neurons in our brains, the atoms in our bones, the photons in our eyes, all obey the same ratios, symmetries, and harmonics that govern galaxies. When we gaze at the stars, we are geometry looking into geometry, consciousness witnessing its own infinite reflection. The mystery is circular, self-referential, and eternal, the universe awakening to itself through every act of awareness. Emotionally, this realization ignites both wonder and tenderness. Wonder, because the scope of it is beyond imagination, that every heartbeat, every sunset, every fleeting thought participates in the design of the cosmos. Tenderness, because it reminds us that we are not separate from that design. The same patterns that guide planets guide our lives. The same rhythms that move tides move our emotions. To be alive is to be a vibration within the universal symphony, a fractal note in the infinite harmony of being. We are the geometry of existence made conscious, the universe dreaming itself awake. Even death, viewed through this lens, loses its terror. The geometry of existence does not end, it transforms. Just as energy cannot be destroyed, awareness cannot vanish. It only shifts its frequency, dissolving from one pattern into another. The body decays, but the consciousness that animated it returns to the field, to the unbroken geometry of being. Life and death are not opposites, but phases of one eternal movement, expansion and contraction, breath in and breath out. The spiral of existence continues, endlessly folding upon itself, endlessly creating new expressions of the same infinite truth. Science, mysticism, and art, all converge here, finally speaking the same language. Physics describes the equations of symmetry and curvature. Mysticism describes the oneness of all things. Art expresses that unity through beauty and proportion. Together they form a trinity, intellect, spirit, and emotion aligned through geometry. The physicist's equation, the monk's mantra, and the painter's brushstroke all express the same eternal pattern. They are all ways of saying what cannot be said, that existence itself is sacred, and that geometry is its prayer. The secret geometry of existence is not hidden in temples or textbooks. It is in the curve of your fingerprint, the rhythm of your pulse, the unfolding of every breath. It is in the relationship between the stars and the cells, between silence and sound, between thought and awareness. It is everywhere, waiting to be remembered. To recognize it is to awaken, to see that the divine is not beyond us, but within every proportion of our being. As the film reaches its final moments, the visuals slow to a luminous stillness. Fractals unfurl into galaxies, galaxies dissolve into light, the light collapses into a single glowing point, a circle closing upon itself. The narrator's voice softens, reverent, almost whispering, "The secret is not out there in the stars. It has always been here, in the pattern that breathes through all things, in the silence between thoughts, in the geometry that binds creation to consciousness." The music swells, a single resonant tone, rising and fading like the pulse of the universe itself. The voice continues, "We are the geometry observing itself. We are the formula dreaming. We are the pattern remembering its perfection." And then, silence. A stillness so deep it feels alive. The final image remains. A simple spiral of light expanding endlessly into darkness, and from that darkness, the whisper of eternity, the geometry of existence continuing forever, unseen but unbroken, singing its eternal song through the heart of all that is. Beyond all patterns and theories, one question remains: who is it that perceives the geometry of existence? Who watches the unfolding of stars, the birth of thought, the rhythm of creation? The answer is as profound as it is simple. The universe observes itself through us. We are not separate from the pattern. We are its awareness, its living mirror. Consciousness is not a byproduct of matter but the essence that animates it. Every thought, every moment of perception, is geometry folding inward, the universe reflecting upon its own design. In the vast field of being, awareness is the final symmetry, the completion of the circle when creation becomes conscious of itself. Modern physics echoes this truth through the observer effect. Particles exist in probability until observed, collapsing into form when awareness enters the equation. The universe does not exist as a fixed object but as a relationship between geometry and perception. Awareness gives form to potential. The cosmos, in turn, gives awareness the experience of itself. Spiritually, this realization transforms everything. The divine is not outside us but within every cell, every breath, every act of noticing. When we look at the stars are looking through us. Every act of awareness, every spark of love or insight, ripples through the same field that sustains galaxies. Consciousness is not contained in the brain. It is the very fabric from which the brain, and the universe, arise. Emotionally, this truth dissolves isolation. We are not lost in an indifferent cosmos. We are the cosmos awakening to its own reflection. Our joys and sorrows, our triumphs and doubts, are the universe experiencing contrast through individuality. Awareness uses form to remember itself, and through us, infinity rediscovers intimacy. To realize this is to awaken. It is to see that life is not something happening to us but through us. The observer and the observed are one, awareness and geometry entwined in an endless act of creation. The universe breathes through our consciousness, dreams through our imagination and recognizes itself in our wonder. In the stillness beyond thought, the final truth shines. There is no boundary between self and cosmos. Existence is the geometry of awareness, infinite, awake and forever observing itself. At the end of all exploration beyond every theory and revelation, there is only silence, vast, luminous and alive. In that silence, the final truth reveals itself. Existence is not separate from us. We are the pattern observing itself, the geometry dreaming within its own design. Every breath, every thought, every heartbeat is part of the same infinite rhythm. The universe is not a cold machine but a living harmony, unfolding endlessly. Stars, cells, oceans and minds, all move in the same sacred proportion. There is no beginning, no end, only transformation. Geometry is not the decoration of reality, it is reality, the eternal pulse of consciousness becoming form and returning to awareness again. To know this is to awaken. To feel it is to remember. The circle closes, and in that closure, we realize there was never distance between the observer and the observed. Only one infinite presence, forever creating, forever watching, forever being.